call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the introduction of the zoning commission members and the planning department staff. Let's start to my right, down at the end here.
I'm Greg McCall, Call Development.
Dan Brooks with the Billings Chamber of Commerce.
Mike Larson with the zoning commission.
Trina White with the Zoning Commission.
And we have Jack King, who's joining us through Zoom by phone. And I'm Nicole Cromwell. I'm the zoning coordinator. I'll be helping them with the public hearing tonight. We have Wyeth Friday, who is operating the Zoom meeting. So if you're trying to get in, please get his attention. We also have Jeanette Vieg, who's helping us with our public audience, and Robin Bartley, who is taking our minutes and also manning the public call-in phone number.
So at this time, hopefully you can hear me with the mask on, but at this time I'll try to speak loudly. At this time, we would take any public comment on any items that are not on the agenda. And that call-in number is 237-6120, and that is for any comments for any items that are not on the agenda. Who's monitoring the calls, Nicole?
Robin is, and she will hold up a sign if she has a call.
Okay.
We're about a minute behind, half a minute behind. So you can wait a couple of seconds to see if anybody has any comments on things not on the agenda. So any no calls, okay? We have not received any calls, so we're going to move to our regular business and the opening of the public hearing. This public hearing will be broadcast on the Facebook page and also, I believe, on Community 7. This is one in a series of zoning commission meetings that will be holding to review the new proposed zoning rules. And I would assume that the first item on the agenda is a presentation by staff, etc. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a short, hopefully short presentation so we can have plenty of time for questions and comments on the draft sections 27,300, 27,800, and 27,1000. Tonight we're going to focus on special topics: accessory dwelling units, short-term rentals, and planned neighborhood development sections of the code. So we'll just jump right in. I'm going to share my screen. It will also be projected over here, and I will stay sitting down for my presentation. I also printed some presentations, so if you can't see the screen, you should be able to follow along. Okay, hold on. Okay, all right, I get the thumbs up from Wyeth. We are sharing the screen on Zoom and the screen up here. So again, I want to start off by saying that this is part of a series of public hearings, that we're going to have many more hearings on different parts of the code as we go through the drafts. As the Zoning Commission takes comment and testimony, we're also having our consultant team kind of gather in those comments so that we can keep track of those over time until we come to the end of the public hearing sessions. And then we will have the zoning commission consider and make suggestions about where they want to edit the code, if at all, and then make the recommendation to City Council, who will also have a series of public meetings and hearings on the draft code later this fall. So where did we start? We started with the 2016 Billings Growth Policy adopted by the City Council. And that is where all of our drafting started from. And we followed the guidelines of that growth policy as we built this new code. We also had a steering committee that was appointed by the City County Planning Board that initiated this amendment to the zoning both for the city and the county in June of 2017. They set forth for the working groups, the consultant team, and the planning staff guiding principles for when we were considering amendments to the zoning code. So we kept all of those issues at top of our mind as we were going through the code. So this second meeting is going to be about special topics in neighborhoods. These special topics were issues that our current code does not address. So there were gaps in our code that we needed to fill with some regulations. Those three issues, kind of the big issues, were accessory dwelling units, which is an issue that was very popular after World War II and has become increasingly popular again. Short-term rentals, which were the Airbnb or the vacation rental by owner, or many, many other homeowner platforms to provide short-term lodging for guests or visitors to the community that don't want to stay in a hotel, would rather stay in a home. And then lastly, the planned neighborhood development, which was a tool that we created to help deal with property that wants to annex to the city or wants to develop in a county and water sewer district and wants to use urban level design and development without having to annex an entire property all at once. So those are the three issues that we're going to cover tonight. So first, accessory dwelling units. This is a popular type of housing choice that was happening all over the United States right after World War II. We looked at what we still had as potentially existing ADUs that have remained in place over time since the 50s or 60s when they were built. They do provide independent living from the main residence, but they're always smaller, and sometimes they even have a second address or a half address, but many times they're just kind of hidden away in neighborhoods across Billings. If we allow this again, the proposal and the consensus that the working group got to was that it wouldn't create two primary dwelling units on the property. One will always be accessory to the primary. That an owner occupancy of one of those dwelling units would be required in the new code. So either the accessory or the primary dwelling. And it would be allowed by right in two zoning districts. The first neighborhoods, which we covered last night, which are the narrow lots, long houses, the style of the first neighborhoods of Billings, either those neighborhoods or new neighborhoods built on the same character, and the N2 or mid-century neighborhoods, which were built after World War II and had wider lots, sometimes duplexes, but a lot of single family. But it would require a special review in the neighborhood 3 zone or the suburban residential zoning districts, the type of developments we did after 1972. It cannot add a third unit to a property. So if you already have 2 primary dwellings on a property, you can't add an accessory dwelling unit. You can only add an accessory dwelling unit if you have just 1 primary dwelling unit. We built some design requirements, and building codes have to be met for these. A lot of people use interchangeably the term tiny home and accessory dwelling unit, but they're not necessarily the same. Building codes were just adopted in the state of Montana that included how to build a tiny home, and the city of Billings adopted those codes. So you can build a tiny home as a primary residence. It doesn't have to be an accessory dwelling unit. Also, as is all the case for all zoning codes in the city, we cannot override any private covenants or contracts that exist that apply in a subdivision. So if your subdivision says only 1 dwelling unit per property, you can't add an accessory dwelling unit just because our zoning code might allow it. We're proposing that these accessory dwelling units be registered with the planning division, and that a recorded agreement goes with the land. And it basically sets out all of the requirements to have an accessory dwelling unit on the property. It can be either within the primary dwelling, like in a basement or a back part of the house, or it can be detached. It could be above a garage or just a tiny or smaller house in the backyard of a property. So we have found when we did our discussions and research on this that this is, a lot of communities have a lot of regulations on ADUs. Some have a small amount, and some say, yeah, we know they exist. We're not really concerned about them, but we're not going to allow them, new ones, to come into existence. So we looked at our property records and compared them to our utility records and found about 900 accessory dwelling units probably still exist within the city of Billings, and they're concentrated in the first neighborhoods and then the mid-century neighborhoods of Billings, but they're all over, as you can see. So this would be an avenue, if we adopt this regulation, for these folks to say, I have an ADU, I would like to register with the city of Billings, and I would like to impose these restrictions on there. But there may be, in some cases, the ability for these people to say, it was an accessory dwelling unit, but I'd really like to make it a second primary. And they can do that. You still have to meet the building codes. You apply for a second address, and it would just be another primary dwelling on the same lot, if that zone district allows 2 dwelling units. Here's some examples of existing accessory dwelling units that we believe exist in the city of Billings. So Avenue C, Ruth Avenue, Yellowstone Avenue, Poly Drive. They're kind of everywhere. And so those are just a few examples of accessory dwelling units in the city. Let's see where we are. Not yet. We're still doing the staff presentation. The chairman will take public comment when we're through with that. The other part we wanted to emphasize is that accessory dwelling units can be an affordable housing option for people who don't want to leave their home, but do need to increase their income from their property to stay there. So the rent from an accessory dwelling unit can help them keep up with that mortgage payment. If these are accepted under zoning, then they can be part of financing for a mortgage on property. We don't believe, at least the working group doesn't believe that this is going to be like open the fence and the horses just, stampede through. These are not inexpensive to create. They are almost as much as a second primary dwelling to build correctly. So this is just an option we thought we should build into the code to fill that gap. And AARP supports wholeheartedly accessory dwelling units to allow older property owners to stay in their homes or to invite their children back home to live in the big house where they stay in the small house in the backyard or, it's the back part of the house. So it accommodates multi-generational families that want to stay together, that want to help out across the generations. So, Mr. Chairman, do you want to, I can answer any questions on the proposed accessory dwelling unit regulations before we go to the next topic, if you'd like.
Any questions from members of the zoning commission?
So I have a question. So like for those two little houses that were on Avenue C, so if the owner moved out, so they were registered, currently those two are probably rental units, and so are they still classified as a rental unit, even if you're saying these are ADU?
If they want, an existing ADU property owner doesn't have to do anything unless they want to have one of those units recognized as an accessory dwelling unit. Okay. If they want to do that, they will have to live in one of those units.
Okay.
But if they're both rentals now, they can continue to be rentals into the future. If there's only one address on the property and now the zoning allows a second address to be issued, they could come in and ask for a second address and have two primary dwellings on the same property.
Okay. That's my question. I think for the landlords out there.
Sure, absolutely. We're not saying that people have to move back into their rental properties at all. That this is just an option for people who are, do want to live and keep an accessory unit and have it legally recognized on zoning and building and for financing and insurance purposes.
So it's existing.
It can stay the same.
Can stay absolutely the same,
So
yeah.
but if you go to sell it, what happens?
You can sell it as exactly as, you probably need to state your name and address for the record so we know who we're talking with, but in any case.
I wasn't here last night. Are you doing public comment during each one of these sections? Or
Well,
we went
last
for the-
last night we only had one section we were doing, that's all the
So
residential.
we have three distinct.
So tonight we have three topics,
So we should probably call for public comment
right,
on each section.
right. So zoning commission questions first and then public comment on the
Just
particular
wanted to make
topic.
sure of the procedure since I missed last night. The other thing
Sure.
is the comment over here was actually just if we can darken the screen at all.
We
But
can,
I think cutting some light down is about the only thing we can do.
right. I don't know, Jeanette, if you could find the light switches over there?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
not much you're gonna be able to do with the
All right,
light coming
and
out.
also, when you do ask a question in the audience, we'd ask that you'd approach the microphone so that people on Community 7 and on our Facebook Live and Zoom can hear you. We were having that issue last night as well. Is that better? It's a little better.
One of those switches just killed one of the cameras.
Uh-oh.
Don't get it too dark.
Unfortunately, I think with
Okay, I think
the,
that's as best as we can do
yeah.
until the sun goes down. We probably won't be here that long.
so just to get organized again, are there any additional questions from any zoning commission member? Hearing none at this time, I would ask if there's any questions from members of the public. You come up to the microphone, give your name and address, and you can ask your question. if there are any questions specifically on the ADUs at this point.
Oh,
So I'm Jim Murphy. I live at 226 Clark Avenue. And my question is, I have some rentals that got more than one house on the property. So is that an ADU or is that a rental property? Or when I sell it, do I have to change it? And does the new owner have to do something different?
The answer is, to that question is no. You don't have to change anything that you're doing. You can still rent your properties. If, I believe that area of Clark Avenue is.
It's not my area, Clark. It's on 2nd Street West.
Oh, okay. But in any case, the current zoning probably doesn't allow 2 units because of lot area requirements. We're changing those parts of the code for residential districts so that you could probably legally, under zoning, have 2 dwelling units on that property in the future. So you could have 2 primary dwellings and it would be
Well,
fine.
the dwellings are there now.
Right, what I'm saying is the current zoning may not allow a rebuild letter to be issued,
So you
which
couldn't,
affects your sale.
you
of the
couldn't tear
prop-
one down and put up another one or something like that. Is that what you're saying?
Right, right. So if you needed a rebuild letter for financing, then we could issue one under the new code, but probably not under the existing code.
I know the new code, it doesn't make, it just stays like it is.
Well, and it would allow for, if you're in that N1 district, right, Nicole? He's in an N1 district right now.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it might even be NX1.
Could be NX1, in which case you'd be
Oh, so
fine.
it's just,
You'd be
everything's, just I can do pretty much,
good. If it burned down, you'd be fine to rebuild.
rebuild it back up, yeah. Okay, all right, thank you.
So, one other point, in reading the governor's mask order, the one, there are several exceptions to that, and one is if you're public speaking. So when you come up to the microphone, you can pull your mask down so people can hear what you say, as you noticed Nicole did as she was talking. So if that is an impediment, but that's okay to pull it down while you're up there. Is there any additional public comment? This is specific to the ADU section at this time.
Comments, and not just questions, but comments?
Questions, yes.
Well, questions only, no comments.
Questions, comments?
Okay. Well, I'm Ed Gulick. I'm an architect here in town and definitely support putting the ADUs back into our zoning ordinances. There's benefits certainly for the property owners. As you're very familiar with it, and I live in a neighborhood where an older neighborhood where there are a fair number of them, and we want to see them if something a fire were to occur or something like that, for them to be able to be rebuilt. There's something good for the neighborhood in terms of stability through time, providing a diversity of housing sizes. That's better for our schools in terms of providing a more consistent population, not a boom and bust cycle. And just, I observe what's going on in other communities around the country. The communities that are doing well, that are prosperous, are communities that are embracing ADUs. I think we should be doing that here in Billings, so I'm really pleased that Project Recode includes them as well. So, thank you. Oh, I guess I need to say my name. I signed in. I'm Ed Gulick,
Your address.
3015 10th Avenue North. Thank you.
Thank you.
Afternoon. I'm Brad Kaler, 405 South 38th. We currently have an ADU on our property as well. This was also a very exciting addition to the codes. If ours burnt down, currently we wouldn't be allowed to rebuild, and subsequently wouldn't be allowed to afford our mortgage. So super beneficial for everybody in all aspects. If the code addresses, still, I assume it's still going to go into, lot coverage as well. So you wouldn't be, allowed to build 5 or 6 of them on a lot, which is a little overwhelming. But no, they're definitely a benefit to the neighborhood. There's within a 2-block radius of me, I think there's 10 of them. So they're very prevalent on the south side. And it does make for a great neighborhood diversity, and just help keep people in their homes. So all for it. Thank you.
So,
Wyeth, do we have any comments from the Zoom audience? Nope. Okay.
And I'll point out once again, the phone number, if anyone is listening and wants to call in, is 237-6120. And opportunity now for any calls, for anyone who has a question or comment. And we'll give a few moments for that.
Okay. Thank you.
And of course, anyone else in the audience who wants to come up can as well. So Robin, I have my eyes on you to see if you give me a signal here, so. Nothing? For anyone listening, just to let you know, if you do call in, you might end up on hold. Be patient. We'll get to you eventually, but as we go along each section, we'll have an opportunity for people to call in. So questions from the Zoning Commission, the public has had their opportunity to call in. Zoom, are we ready to move to short-term rentals?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, so our current code does not allow the short-term rental of a house or part of a house. And when we see short-term rental, we mean less than 30 days. It's not clear, it's not a statement in the code in any one place. You have to read definitions, the use table, and the district description to figure that out. So it's a gap in our code, and it's a clarity problem in our code. Also, we know, just because we occasionally get some complaints about a short-term rental situation, that these already exist in our community, but they largely exist very well in the neighborhoods where they are. So we don't have the big party house problems that Las Vegas does. We don't have the corporate ownership problems that some of the places near big national attractions have, where they come in and they buy an entire neighborhood of houses and turn them all into short-term rentals. But we do have them, and we, the Urban Issues Working Group, as well as the Airbnb Owners Group, decided that we needed to clarify the code and make this a legal option in our zoning districts. They would have to be registered with the city. They would have to be done yearly renewals. They would have to name a person who would be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in case there was an issue. If police are called at 2 a.m. because of a noise complaint, they're going to deal with whoever's on that property at the time, who might be a short-term guest. But if they needed some additional assistance, that they could have a name and a number to call. So we didn't have a lot of time to fill out this regulation to the max. In other words, build a full set of regulations, because we just don't know if there really are issues that we need to further address. So this is what I call a set of starter regulations. It's a place for us to start. and see if we need to do any adjustments after a year or 2 years of having this in place. Again, this use cannot override private covenants. So if your subdivision or contract documents for your home say only the owner can live here, it cannot be rented, or it cannot be rented on a short-term basis, then we can't, because of our zoning, override that. And we would allow it in all of our neighborhood districts, as well as some of our commercial zones. It would be allowed in single family. It would be allowed in unit ownership. It would be allowed in multifamily. So we're just going to open the gates and see if we got it right or if we need to adjust in a couple of years. So that's where we started, and I just wanted to share with you, these are just a couple of screen grabs from yesterday, listings on Airbnb. So, and this was just the beginning part of the pictures. I mean, I think there were about 200 listed yesterday on Airbnb, and then VRBO has a different way. They just have little dots on the map. So they are everywhere across our community. And in most places, and in most cases, they fit right in with the neighborhood. Now, there are some properties that do really short-term rentals, like just a weekend, 3 days, and some that can vary throughout the year. So, you know, maybe sometimes they have weekly rentals during a summer season, but then they go for longer terms, like 3 months or 4 months during the fall or the winter. We have so many different kinds of tourists here and guests that come to our community, everything from medical professionals to visiting nurses to nurses in training, to financial people, to, you know, agricultural or trade shows or sporting events, and they all have different needs, and they all have different times that they want to have the ability to have a short-term rental in a residence rather than a hotel. So that's where we started. We've had a couple of discussions with the owners group, and we think we got this right to start off with. As I said, these are just a place to begin. So I don't think I have any more slides on this particular issue. No, I don't. So if the commission has any questions for me?
Questions from the zoning commission, and before I actually address that, I'm going to give the number one more time in case anybody in the public wants to call, 237-6120. Questions from zoning commission members? None? Apparently not. Any member of the public would like to comment or ask a question? Anybody here that's present?
Miles Egan with Berkshire Hathaway Fulberg Realtors. Nicole, the question I have is we're running into some situations where business licenses are being approved and given by the city in residential areas that are causing some issues, some adjustments in values of homes because of this. Some of these homes, if they've got 5 bedrooms in them, there are organizations that can put 2 people in each bedroom. So in many cases, there are 10, 12 people in these R9600 homes. And some of those values are $500,000, $600,000 homes, impacting the value of the homes next door. Would you please explain the city's stand on business licenses in residential subdivisions that do not allow rentals?
Okay, I believe you're referring to what are called sober living homes.
Mm-hmm.
And the state and federal case law on this is very settled.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot say that people who want to live together in a sober living group arrangement cannot do that. It is a federally recognized disability. So they're registering because we required it of all of the similar type of arrangements
Mm-hmm.
in our community. That's the only reason why we know they're there. And
By giving the business license
right,
in those
right. Now, I'm
R96
sure that there are other places that are just a single person has decided to buy a big home and open it up to people who want to live in a sober environment, and they can do that as well. 2 persons per bedroom is part of our definition of a family. So it's not something, and we did put out, the city attorney's office put out a 6-page memo to the city council in June of 2019, and I'm sure that's circulated to a lot of different people, but it's not an issue that we can change through zoning. It is a protected class of resident.
Thank you for explaining it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Additional comments on the short-term rental issue from anyone in the audience? Any Zoom comments over there?
Anyone on this call about making comments on short-term rentals, please go ahead and let us know right now. Thanks.
Nope, okay,
We're good?
good.
So once again, I gave the number 237-6120 if anyone wants to call in. And Robin will give them, no, nothing?
I guess I have one question. So when they come down to the city and apply for a license to register their short-term rental, is the city staff going to be checking against the subdivision regulations? Are they going to check that? Okay.
No, we will not be enforcing or looking up private covenants and restrictions. That's kind of a due diligence thing of someone who wants to do this.
That's consistent though, pretty much in any situation. The city does not take responsibility for enforcing
Private
private covenant.
covenant.
That's correct.
That's right.
Jerry raised my name. And I got a question on the student housing, where it's not uncommon to have one room with 4 beds in it and 4 different rentals. Is that allowed in all subdivisions in Billings, Montana?
Well, what you're calling, we're going to call in our code is just a group of people who've decided they want to live together, and the same rules apply, 2 persons per bedroom. So if you have a 4-bedroom house and you want to rent it to one group of 8 students, you can do that. It causes a parking problem usually, and sometimes a noise problem, but it's allowed under the code.
Greetings, my name is Spencer Stone. I live at 2811 Missouri Street, and I have some B&Bs and rentals, other properties. I I've worked with Nicole on this project, and we know each other by name. Nicole, I was just wondering, basically for Channel 7 and for the Zoom meeting, and just your comment too, what are we looking at? Are we looking at right now, is your program set up with fees and schedule and timing and permitting? Is that all set up and in place as to what this is going to cost a person that might have 1 or 3 or 5 B&Bs? And what about, that's one question. And what about then the landlord that goes short-term and long-term both, which I mean long-term is according to your definition, anything longer than 30 days. What if you're bouncing back and forth? Because you are a short-term renter, sometimes you get the permit and that covers you then for the year. But I mean, if you go mostly long-term, but you do get a couple of short terms, I'm understanding that I would probably then need to have this permit that you're talking about, correct?
We haven't worked out all the details of the administration or permitting requirements. I can't really tell you what the fees would be, but they would not be excessive.
Okay.
We don't anticipate, because of the way that we crafted this code, that there's going to be a lot of staff time required to review those licenses. Obviously, because this is a new regulation and a new permitting process, there is likely going to be a phase-in period after adoption that would say, okay, in 6 months or in 8 months, we're going to have a system in place and the administration all worked out and the fee set, and that's when you can start registering these. As far as how many times a year you would do a short-term rental versus a long-term rental, you know, I don't think that's something that we had even really figured out at this point. It may be that, you know, if you do short-term rentals for less than, you know, a 60-day period during the year, maybe you don't need one of these licenses. But we haven't decided that yet.
Okay. So I also have had a real learning curve with some members of the Montana Landlords Association about a business license for landlords compared to a business license for a B&B. I do understand that we won't need a business license for a B&B, but we will need a permit that you're talking about for a B&B. Is that correct?
Well, the way it's currently written, it's both. Because we only considered a category of you do short-term rental or you're a landlord and you do 30 days or more, not this kind of combination.
Okay.
We haven't figured that out either. I mean, if there's,
Okay.
obviously if you and the Airbnb hosts group have a preference, you need to say that.
Okay.
It's like we would prefer to just have one license and it not be a business license. You need to say that.
That's what you just stated is what I believe personally that I would like to see. I can go to our group, and we're not really official, we're just a group of people, but I can get you an answer to that as a group as to what we'd like to do. But I'm stating now personally, publicly, that I personally would like to just do one permit and no business license. I have learned from Fran that when you get the business license, you then have depreciation and lots of other headaches as a business owner, and you don't want to mix short-term rentals with that. And so I think it's going to be a cleaner deal. And I have looked at other cities across the state, and I believe most of them are the same. They don't require a business license, they just have their own permit process. But I might not be 100% correct there, but okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Additional comments from the audience? No calls? You ready for the next section, planned
Okay.
unit development?
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think I'm going to, maybe if I get stuck somewhere or not explaining something right, our consultant team is on Zoom here, and I may ask for them for an assist,
Okay.
particularly on this, because it's a brand new tool, and it's, something that we've never done before, and they really helped us out a lot with figuring this out. And that is planned neighborhood developments. If you have been involved in any planning or zoning decisions in the last 5 to 8 years in the city of Billings and Yellowstone County, you know that we have expansion problems. And sometimes we'll have a developer who decides that rather than go through the city council to get their urban development zoning approved, they go through the county. Because our county code has the same districts as the city code. All of the urban densities are there, all of the commercial zone districts are the same. And so they go through the county and then they request annexation. And the city, basically, because there are identical zones, our code is written that if it is an identical zone to the cities, it comes over in the annexation as the same zone. But the city has not participated in that decision. So this causes some real headaches for the city when they're annexing property that they weren't involved in those zoning and land use decisions. So, but we also know, on the other hand, very clearly that when a developer wants to do his zoning in the city with the city council and the city zoning commission, that it requires an annexation of the property. And if that developer isn't ready to, pull both triggers and both barrels and start developing out of the gate, there are significant carrying costs for that land. And so we have this problem at the edge. This is a tool we think can fix that problem. And we called it a planned neighborhood development. Essentially what it does, it says that if you want city services, if you need water and sewer and police and fire and transportation systems and all of the things that come with the city to make your development work, you need to propose a planned neighborhood development. And we devised 4 different types. You don't need to choose one, but if you choose 2, you have to have at least 10 acres to choose 2 different types for 2 different parts of your development. And it ranges from a mixed-use planned neighborhood development, which includes some commercial and residential, public zoning, a mixed residential, which is all residential with a few, maybe some neighborhood offices or neighborhood service businesses zoned in there, or just a neighborhood. So you just pick and choose at least 3 different neighborhood zone districts to provide some housing choice within that new development. Or the town center PD, which we crafted to be used primarily in Lockwood, where Lockwood water and sewer is available, and they want to create a town center, but we didn't want to create, just a specialized Lockwood zoning for their downtown or the place they want to create a downtown. So those 4 types are what we came up with. And each type, and this is in section 27-800 of the proposed code, and that code is online at project-recode.com, code outline. So we're going to kind of start with the neighborhood PND, and this is what it could look like on a 10-acre parcel of land where you mix and match different neighborhood zones. The PND requires a basic street layout, not a complicated, not a bunch of alleys or civil engineering design to the streets, but how it's going to connect to the existing street system and how the circulation is going to work within that. And then you set up your zone districts based on that basic street design. Now, I will tell you, many of our planned neighborhood developments, planned developments, I should say, which are more like customized zoning, already do this. So we already have examples of basic street designs and basic zoning pieces that are put together as part of a planned development zone. This just makes it easier because we have a kit of parts for each type. We do have some minimums required for each zone district for a type of zone based on what type of P&D it is. So as you can see, maybe on the screen here, we have some N1, N2, N3. We also have the NX1, which is the small apartment house. And then parks will be an essential part of every new planned neighborhood development. So that's the way we set it up. I don't know, is Leslie still on Zoom? Am I saying all this right? I think, and these are places that were picked from our street map of Billings, so these are real places. But these are just illustrations of how these kit of parts can be used to create a zoning map. Now, the key element here is that the annexation and the zone change come together to the city. But the annexation agreement is triggered on a development schedule that's worked out between the city and the developer. So the zoning is set. The zoning goes into effect as soon as one phase of that development is annexed, is triggered in that agreement. So, you know, of a 10-acre parcel, you could say, I'm going to start with these 2 acres, and that's going to go first. So the city limits is drawn, and it includes that 2 acres. The 8 acres outside the city still has that underlying zoning, but you can't use it until the next phase gets triggered and annexed to the city limits. That way, the carrying cost to the developer is minimized. The city gets to participate in the entire zoning of that new parcel of land and can know ahead of time where those transportation connections are going to be met. So that's the neighborhood. So that's kind of the very basic. So that's, you know, many parcels of land will just do the neighborhood P&D. But there'll be some parcels who say, I'm a little bigger and I want to do more mixed use. And because my neighborhood is going to be so big, I want to be able to have some neighborhood services available. So that's the mixed residential P&D. And this shows a way that that could work, lay out. So it has many more neighborhood zone districts in it, including some higher density multifamily. It has a little more parkland, but it also includes some neighborhood office zoning and some neighborhood mixed use zoning in there as well. The mixed use P&D is truly that larger lot, like 100 acres. The Zimmerman family property at the corner of Grand and Zimmerman Trail has this type of development pattern or plan. It has everything from neighborhoods and medium, higher density residential, some mixed use, some corridor mixed use or high intensity or higher intensity commercial uses. In fact, this is the Zimmerman property. It's on the map here, but drawn in a different way. So it shows you that all the different pieces can fit together. And this is really intended, the mixed use P&D is really intended for where you have those arterial street frontages and you want to create some commercial activity along those arterial streets, but not strip it out to make it so that it makes sense for that location. And then finally, and this is really for Lockwood, we don't think we're going to get any new town centers and Billings, but it's built in there. The town center PND is to create that kind of higher density commercial and mixed use in a very concentrated form, but also having open space available for the residents and for activities that you normally find in a downtown, a farmer's market, a weekend celebration, that sort of thing. So the plazas and the parklets all fit together. And I'm not sure what else I have. I'm always losing my place. Here we go. Sorry. So those are the 4 types of planned neighborhood development. So the code as currently written would make these required. So if you want to do urban level zoning and you want to have city services, you will have to do this process. If you don't want city services and you want to do a county subdivision and county residential density, you can certainly still do that. We're not forcing anybody to annex to the city, but if you're within the limits of annexation and you want these services, this is the process that we're proposing to have that happen. As I said, it's a brand new type of tool, so I welcome any of your questions. I have some of my own, but.
So questions from members of the zoning committee?
I have a question. Nicole, I know we talked about this a fair deal during the urban working group, but maybe just even for the audience, it might be good to hear a little bit about how we're going to address housekeeping with the code as we adopt it. This is an area, since it's a new tool, that I wouldn't be surprised if we've got some tweaks we need to make to some of the district charts and so on. I remember specifically when we were talking about mixed residential, that we were still thinking that N2 was permitted, not just limited. And in here I just double checked it, at least the most recent one, we still have limited listed here instead of permitted. So I'm wondering, if you wanted to just address how you plan to do housekeeping over, say, the first year or something of the code?
Sure. Right. We'll freely admit that not everything in here is going to work the way we think it's going to work. Not just in this part of the code, but in any part of the code. And so we will collect those housekeeping issues and problems, whether they're brought to our attention by a developer or a builder or planning staff who's trying to apply this new code. And at the end of a year or year and a half, we're going to come back with a bunch of housekeeping amendments. That's always the case with any new code, even if it's just a section of the code. We'll do that. So you were talking about the, which one you were referring to?
Mixed residential.
The mixed residential PND?
N1 is permitted, N2 is limited to a maximum of 20%. And
Okay.
I don't remember why that was. I don't know if maybe Elizabeth or Leslie, if they're on, if they could speak to that particular one. That didn't jive in my head. And no N3 at all in that particular district.
Right. So, second question.
Do you want me to respond?
Yeah, hold on a minute, let me get a microphone. Okay, go ahead, Leslie.
Sure, I can just respond to why we did it initially. Limited the N2 and the mixed residential P&D. The idea was that the neighborhood P&D would be a mix of mostly single-family neighborhood types, so N1, N2, N3, but that the mixed residential is located in places, sorry, gosh,
No feedback?
yeah. That the mixed residential is meant to be used in those more higher density locations. And typically, when you have those locations that you want to be more high density, then you're trying to kind of encourage those types of zones. So the idea behind the MR PND, the mixed residential PND, was to encourage that the NX1, NX2, and NX3, some N1 because it's a small lot, single family, essentially a small lot compared to the rest of the country, and then N2 would just be limited to the smaller amount. So again, you know, if you wanted to do a neighborhood, a full neighborhood with a limited amount of multifamily zones, then you would pick the neighborhood. So to avoid a neighborhood, an MR PND that would mostly be single family with just the requirement of NX1, that's why W2 is.
Okay, that's good. I understand. I just needed a refresher on that. One other question on this too that I still had. Do I need a microphone?
No.
Okay.
Shout it out.
All right. I can't remember why, and I think it's an issue we might want to look at. With state regulation, still is going to call for 10% land dedication for parkland for subdivision rules, but in the mixed use, the MUPND, we called for 5%.
As a minimum.
Is a minimum. So
As a minimum, and it will count towards your dedication.
okay, does that mean then we would, if using that zoning district, we don't have to follow state subdivision law of 10%?
No. It means that you have to, you would have to give the other 6% cash in lieu.
Okay. So, but you'd have to, I get it. So you can't do a cash in lieu contribution. You're forced to do at least 5%.
Right.
Park.
Exactly. And that's just to create neighborhood spaces for people to be together.
I just didn't
Not
understand.
necessarily meet all of your parkland dedication requirements for subdivision.
Just didn't make sense consistency-wise where in the town center we had 10%, the other two districts we had 10%, but in this one we had 5%. Unless I'm looking at an old version.
No, yeah.
Now, I'm having a problem reading it because my chart goes across 2 pages.
Just again, in town center, I would say it would make more sense to do it like we did in the MUPNDs also, if that were the case. Or I need Leslie again to explain.
Sure. Also, what the percentage is, like in terms of as you get smaller, dividing the work. There is a difference. It's not one requirement, no matter what the lot size is.
Really?
It's like a down. So we have to check that.
That was weird.
Yeah, that was weird.
Did that answer your question?
No, that's okay. We'll figure it out.
I will check the charts just to make, we did find an inconsistency earlier 2 weeks ago between the chart and the text, which we've corrected.
Okay.
So we had a question here as well.
I just was like trying to go back, so, a couple questions. So you said the town center, is that the neighborhood PND?
No, the town center P&D is named TCP&D.
Yeah.
TCPND. Okay. And then, so that, I guess I'm not up to speed apparently. So the NX3, is that?
NX3 is the apartment blocks.
Okay.
You know, usually
Okay.
5 or more units in a building, many
Okay.
buildings in a group.
Okay, thank you.
And you probably won't find the town center P&D in your chart in the city version, just because it's really for Lockwood and it's in the county version.
Okay, gotcha.
Any additional questions from members of the zoning commission? So at this time, anyone in the audience, member of the public, question or comment, please come up, give your name and address. Question, comment. And again, I'll shout out that phone number, 237-6120, if you want to call in on this particular topic on the planned neighborhood development section.
Good evening, Nick Pancho, address 2424 Sunrise, 59101, with Collaborative Design Architects.
Clarification, these P&Ds for master plan development is it the correct understanding that these are not intended to be inclusive of master planning that does not include residential? Is that correct understanding? So if we have development that's primarily community commercial, controlled industrial, highway commercial, is the intent that one of these 4 paths is the correct path for those kinds of master plan developments?
Right, exactly. The planned neighborhood development, let's say you have a commercial property on the edge of Billings.
Sure.
It's all developed and it's zone controlled industrial. We are not going to refuse annexation based on the fact that we're going to force a planned neighborhood development on that. It's already developed. The city decides whether to annex it. It would stay, you know, the industrial zones are the same across the border. The heavy commercial zones are the same across the border from each other. So developed properties are not going to have to do that. Or if it is a property that's already zoned, one of those heavy commercial or industrial zones, the city can just choose to annex it for that industrial development or heavy commercial use that needs the city services.
Got it.
So-
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions from members of the audience that's here?
I forgot one part. This is not just for properties that are going to annex. We opened this up to any parcels within the city that are not developed and are larger than 3 acres. And they want to take advantage of this tool, they can do that. We won't force them to do it, but they can take advantage of it if they want to.
So they are already in the city. So
Right.
annexation is a part of a piece of that.
Right,
But they can use one of these
right.
tools to put together.
Uh-huh.
That would really help with infill, a lot of different areas in town.
So I'm not seeing anyone coming up from the audience that's here. Do we have anyone on Zoom or phone or none of the above?
This is Jack, no comments.
Jack has no comment.
Okay. Well, I guess we're done with that section as well. So, as Nicole stated before, this is just one of a series of hearings, public hearings on this topic that will be occurring. Another one tomorrow night. We will be doing it then also in August and maybe September as well. Some of those meetings will also involve the county
Yes?
at the same time. We're not taking any action or any votes tonight or anything along that line. This is just for public comment and information. Then eventually, the process is, after it comes through all of those hearings, the zoning commission will make a recommendation to the city council to adopt these different sections. And then the city council will start their process, where they will go through hearings, so there'll also be an opportunity to comment at that time.
Right.
And with that, I think this meeting is ready to be adjourned.
Okay. And for tomorrow night, if you want to tune in or show up, we're going over the new commercial, mixed-use, industrial, and public zone districts. So we'll go through all of those tomorrow night.
All right.
So, Michael, I guess just a quick question about how you ended things there. So the recommendation is that you people are going to recommend that the city conducts public hearings and receive public comments on the public review draft of the new zoning code. Is that what happens here?
Eventually, after we go through the series of public hearings, the zoning commission will be tasked with making a recommendation to the city council.
Okay.
So that will not occur until all of these public hearings that have concluded. We will make a recommendation for the adoption of the different sections, and then the city council starts their process of, again, going through public hearings and an opportunity for the public to speak then. And it's the city council that will actually adopt these new zoning regulations.
Okay. So I've heard on city council meetings that sometimes when you guys, and most of you will know this very well, better than I do, when you have a list of different things, the council can approve them all in one vote. And sometimes a council member will say, I would like to pull out items 1, 4, and 7 for private or for discussion, other than the blanket approval. And then the council then agrees, all in favor say aye. They'll pull those few items out, they'll approve the rest of them, and then they'll discuss the individual ones. Is that something that could happen to this whole zoning package? that let's just say in my case, that the short-term renters say, no, we want to talk about this, we want to work on this, and there's not a single complaint from any other person in the city. It's just us short-term renters. Can the council pull out the short-term rental section and approve everything else?
Under Robert's Rules of Order, they can pull out any section that they want, even subsections of sections, for separate discussion.
I will tell you, though, this thing is a piece. It's a piece that fits well together. And when you start pulling pieces out of it, it's just like a sweater. It comes unraveled. Now, you can pull something out and change it a little bit and then put it back. But if you decide, or the council decides, that we're not going to adopt section 300 or 800 or this part of 1000, it could all just kind of fall apart. So yes, adjustments to wording and sections or intent of different sections of the code, absolutely possible. That's what this is all about, so that we can make those adjustments and those edits now. And then the zoning commission can forward that with those suggested recommendations for edits and changes. And then the council gets another chance to do their editing and their changes, but it's really all one piece.
Okay. But in my group of people, if we have any issues, it's best now to bring it up to this group and not to the city council.
Well, you know, you
can, but
you can do it twice,
okay, but it's best to bring it up right now.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're accepting all kinds of comments,
Right.
emails,
Okay.
regular mail, come in the office, write me a note.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Nicole?
Yes. Elizabeth is on the horn. Hold on a minute. Elizabeth is our consultant team leader. Elizabeth is from Community Recode. Hold on. Go ahead.
Nicole, I just wanted to ask you to remind people that we will be doing the industrial districts, not including eBird tomorrow night.
Okay, right. We're not changing anything in eBird. eBird is staying the same. We're just making sure it fits in the structure of the new code. So we won't be considering any changes to the industrial district east of downtown.
Thank you for that clarification. Anything else from anybody? Hearing nothing, meeting's adjourned.